The public image of a famous place is usually just its newest layer, or its most photographed one. Some hidden layers are archaeological. Some are engineering systems, built to move animals, water, or armies. Some are burials. Some are recent ruins already swallowed by sand and time. And some are legends that quietly collapse the moment anyone checks the evidence against them. Each one changes what the place actually is once you look underneath it. We start where the myth is oldest, and the missing body has been buried the longest. Chapter 1. Rapa Nui, the bodies beneath the heads. They are called the Easter Island heads. They have never been just heads. Nearly 1,000 moai are known across Rapa Nui, and most were carved as complete figures, full torsos, arms carved in relief, long fingers meeting at the waist. Many of the moai still standing on the slopes of Rano Raraku are partly buried by centuries of sediment accumulation and slope movement. That is not a discovery from 2012. In 1914, British archaeologist Catherine Routledge led the first serious excavation on the island, digging out more than 30 statues and photographing the torsos beneath them. Thor Heyerdahl's expedition uncovered more in the 1950s. Recent Easter Island Statue Project excavations did not discover that the moai had bodies. Earlier archaeologists already knew that. What the modern project changed was public visibility, circulating detailed images of torsos, carved hands, and back designs that most people had never seen, including ring and girdle motifs carved into some statues' backs, a detail almost never visible on eroded surface stone. The tallest moai ever successfully raised onto a stone platform is Paro, nearly 10 meters tall, weighing an estimated 82 tons, once topped with a separate carved stone cylinder representing a bound topknot. Moving something that size across volcanic terrain without metal tools, wheels, or draft animals remains one of the clearest displays of coordinated human engineering anywhere in the ancient Pacific. But the deeper contradiction here isn't logistics, it's meaning. To the Rapa Nui people, these were never decorative heads. They were Aringa Ora, living faces, carved representations of deified ancestors, positioned to watch inland over their descendants' land and crops. The world outside reduced complete ancestral bodies to floating stone heads simply because erosion buried the rest, and a century of postcards never corrected the impression. The full figures were never lost, they were just never fully looked at. Rapa Nui isn't the only famous site where the real structure is the part nobody photographs. In Rome, an entire hidden world once operated beneath the feet of tens of thousands of spectators, and none of them were ever meant to see it. Chapter 2. The Colosseum, the machine beneath the arena. The crowd saw gladiators. They saw lions appear from nowhere. They never saw how. Beneath the wooden arena floor of the Colosseum lies the Hypogeum, an underground network covering roughly half a hectare, arranged around a central corridor with more than a dozen passages branching outward across 2 levels. It wasn't part of the original building. Emperor Domitian had it added decades after the Colosseum first opened, turning a simple stage into a working machine. Inside were animal cages, gladiator holding areas, storage rooms, service corridors, and dozens of wooden lift shafts, each one operated entirely by hand, using ropes, counterweights, and human muscle. A caged leopard could be lowered into darkness, hauled sideways along a corridor, then hoisted straight up through a trapdoor into blinding daylight, appearing in the arena with no visible entrance behind it. A hunter standing above would have no way of knowing which trapdoor was about to open or what was coming through it. The spectacle above was choreography. The labor below was industrial, cramped, unlit, and physically brutal for the people and animals who worked there. Historians still don't agree on exactly how many lifts operated simultaneously, or how tightly the system was coordinated during the largest shows, The machinery itself was never fully documented, and centuries of reuse, fire, and collapse destroyed much of the physical evidence. What is clear is that later structural changes sealed off parts of the space entirely, ending the elaborate flooded sea battle spectacles the arena had briefly been capable of staging in its earliest years. For roughly 1,000 years afterward, the hypogeum lay buried under fallen masonry and earth, unseen, until 20th century excavation cleared it back out. In June 2021, following a major restoration, a new elevated walkway opened the hypogeum more fully to visitors, revealing the corridors where animals, performers, and stage machinery once waited beneath the arena. The most photographed arena on Earth was never just a stage. It was a stage built directly on top of a machine, and the machine is the part the crowd was never supposed to notice. Some hidden structures were built to be forgotten later. Others were never meant to be found in the first place, buried not by empire, but by an ordinary field in Wales. Chapter 3. Pembrokeshire, the warrior buried beneath a field. In February 2018, a metal detectorist named Mike Smith swept a damp Welsh field he had never had much luck in, only because his usual ground was too waterlogged to search that day. He found bronze fittings. Curators quickly recognized them as parts of a chariot, and what followed became the only complete chariot burial currently known from Wales. Excavations by National Museum Wales and the Dyfed Archaeological Trust, carried out with the help of local college students, uncovered a circular mortuary enclosure, the iron tires from the chariot's own wheels, decorated bronze harness fittings, turret rings that once guided the reins, and an iron sword laid near where a body would have rested. Ground-penetrating radar later hinted at additional archaeological features surrounding the burial, still largely unexplored. There was no skeleton to recover. The soil in that part of Pembrokeshire is acidic enough to dissolve bone and wood entirely over 2,000 years, leaving only the metal the ground couldn't break down. Whoever this was, likely a person of high status within a late Iron Age tribal community, their body is gone. Their possessions remain, precisely arranged, exactly as they were left by the people who buried them. Burial with a full chariot was reserved for a small elite. It was a public display of power meant to be seen once by mourners and then sealed forever. For close to 2,000 years, it worked. A patch of ordinary farmland gave no hint of what was underneath it, and the exact location is still kept confidential to protect the site. A major 5-year research program launched in 2025, meaning the burial is still being conserved, reconstructed, and interpreted. The field gave up the chariot, but not yet the complete story of the person buried with it. An empty field concealed a warrior's grave for 2 millennia. Further east, an entire hill did something even stranger. It didn't just hide a monument. Time slowly turned the monument into the hill itself. Chapter 4. Göbekli Tepe, the monument inside a hill. Göbekli Tepe had been recorded decades earlier, but its importance was missed. In 1994, Klaus Schmidt revisited the site, recognized the exposed stones as Neolithic T-shaped pillars, and helped begin systematic excavation the following year. What he eventually helped uncover was a series of monumental circular enclosures built roughly between 9600 and 8200 BCE, massive T-shaped stone pillars, some standing over 5 meters tall and weighing many tons, carved with foxes, scorpions, boars, and birds in relief, arranged by communities who, as far as the evidence shows, had not yet adopted full-time farming. That timing is the contradiction. Monuments on this scale were long assumed to require settled agricultural societies with food surplus and centralized labor forces. Göbekli Tepe appears to predate that transition, built instead by hunter-gatherer communities during the very period agriculture was beginning to take root in the surrounding region. It does not prove that agriculture began because of this site. That claim goes further than the evidence supports. What it does show is that large-scale cooperative construction came earlier than most models expected, possibly acting as a cause of more settled life, rather than simply a result of it. The enclosures eventually filled with rubble, tools, bone, and sediment. Some archaeologists have interpreted this as deliberate backfilling, while newer work suggests collapse, erosion, and later activity may also explain part of the fill. Either way, that fill preserved what was underneath. Only a fraction of the site has been excavated, and geophysical surveys indicate additional monumental structures remain beneath the hill, meaning most of what's actually here has still never been seen by anyone alive today. A hill that looked completely empty was actually one of the oldest large monuments ever built by human hands, hidden not by accident, but by time working exactly the way it always does. Not every hidden structure is thousands of years old. Some are barely a lifetime old, buried in living memory, under the sand, where people still lay out their towels every summer. Chapter 5. The Atlantic Wall. The war city beneath Europe's beaches, stretching roughly 5,000 kilometers along occupied Europe, from the Norwegian fjords down to the Spanish border. The Atlantic Wall. Bunkers, gun emplacements, observation posts, command centers, linked underground by tunnels and cable trenches. Most of it never faced the full-scale invasion it was built to stop, and after the war, much of it simply stayed exactly where it was. Too heavy to move easily, too expensive to demolish properly. Sand and time did the rest. At Noordwijk, on the Dutch coast, a complex of connected bunkers was shoveled under sand and sealed off in the early 1970s. Decades later, volunteers dug part of it back out by hand. The wider Noordwijk battery housed roughly 180 German soldiers across bunkers for command, artillery, ammunition, and accommodation, connected by around 400 meters of tunnels. Visitors now walk the same corridors those crews used, past rooms restored with wartime equipment and reconstructions, beneath dunes that families cross barefoot every summer, without knowing what's underneath their feet. This wasn't one isolated bunker. It was a small fragment of a defensive network meant to run the length of an entire continent. And much of that network is still out there right now, sealed under sand, absorbed into vegetation, or quietly repurposed along coastlines most tourists visit purely for the beach and never think to look beneath. Not every part of it survived intact, and not every buried structure has been mapped or reopened to the public, but enough has been uncovered to make one thing unmistakably clear. This wasn't ancient history slowly erased by geology. It was modern history, buried within living memory, hiding in plain sight under recreational sand. The next hidden discovery wasn't buried by war or volcanic rock or empire. It was buried under a parking lot and forgotten for longer than anyone alive could personally remember. Chapter 6. Richard III, the King Beneath a Car Park. King Richard III died at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, the last English king killed in battle. He was buried without ceremony at Greyfriars Friary in Leicester. Then the friary was demolished during the dissolution of the monasteries under Henry VIII. The city grew directly over the ruins. Centuries passed, buildings rose and fell again, and eventually the exact site became an ordinary municipal car park. A parking bay near the grave happened to carry a painted letter R, a coincidence that only became striking after the discovery. In 2012, a targeted archaeological search, driven largely by writer and researcher Philippa Langley's years of research into the friary's likely footprint, dug a trench directly into that car park. Langley had spent years cross-referencing 16th century maps against modern property records just to narrow the search to that single car park, against real skepticism from historians who doubted the friary had even survived. Remarkably, the team found a skeleton in the very first trench on almost the first day of digging. DNA comparison to living descendants of Richard's family line confirmed the identification beyond reasonable doubt. The skeleton showed battle trauma consistent with contemporary accounts of his death, along with a spine visibly curved by scoliosis, a real and documented physical condition, not the exaggerated theatrical hunchback that later Tudor-era propaganda and Shakespeare's play attached to his memory. Approximately 527 years after his death, a king was found not in a royal crypt or a cathedral tomb, but under asphalt, beneath the exact kind of ordinary daily traffic he could never have imagined outliving him by centuries. The car park is gone now, replaced by a visitor center built directly around the gravesite, and Richard was formally reinterred at Leicester Cathedral in 2015. Some hidden histories are found by searching with precision. Others are stumbled into completely by accident, by people who weren't looking for history at all, like the police officers who once walked into a cinema that shouldn't have existed, 60 feet under the streets of Paris. Chapter 7. Paris, the secret world beneath the streets. Beneath Paris lies a former limestone quarry network, hundreds of kilometers of tunnels carved out over centuries to build the city standing above it. A small official section near Denford-Rochereau was converted in the late 18th century into an ossuary, holding the remains of several million Parisians, transferred there when the city's overflowing cemeteries became a public health crisis. That section is the part tourists queue for and pay to visit. It is a tiny fraction of what's actually down there. The wider quarry network stretches roughly 300 kilometers beneath the city, and sections of it were repurposed as bomb shelters during the Second World War, decades before anyone carved a cinema into it. Most of that network is unofficial, unlit, and illegal to enter, the domain of urban explorers known as cataphiles. On the night of August 23, 2004, Parisian police on a training exercise pushed past a hand-painted no-access sign into an uncharted section beneath the 16th arrondissement. A motion sensor triggered a recorded loop of dogs barking, designed to frighten off intruders in the dark. The officers kept going anyway. What they found was a fully built underground cinema, roughly 500 square meters in size. A large screen, working projection equipment, carved stone seating for around 30 people, a stocked bar, and a kitchen complete with a pressure cooker for cooking couscous. All running on pirated electricity and phone lines investigators never fully traced back to their source. When police returned days later with proper equipment and reinforcements, the entire installation had already been dismantled. The wiring was gone. All that remained was a single handwritten note. Do not search for us. The group responsible, part of a loose collective of unauthorized restorers and explorers who had also secretly repaired a clock inside the Pantheon, was never successfully prosecuted. Nobody down there had stolen anything, and no law clearly covered what they'd actually done: build, entirely in secret, for their own private use, then quietly vanish. Beneath Paris, the dead occupy one section of the old quarries. Somewhere else in the same underground world, the living built themselves a cinema. Not every underground legend turns out to be true. The next one is among the most repeated stories in the world, and it may be almost entirely false. Chapter 8. The Great Wall, the graveyard myth inside the stones. Everyone has heard some version of the same claim, that the Great Wall of China is the longest cemetery on Earth. Its bricks bound together with the crushed bones of the workers who died building it. The wall itself is real, and so is the suffering behind it. It is a collection of walls, trenches and fortifications built and rebuilt across different dynasties over roughly 2,000 years, using enormous forced and conscripted labor drawn from across the empire. Workers absolutely died during construction, in numbers historians still debate and cannot precisely confirm from surviving records. But the bones in the mortar story doesn't hold up under actual chemical testing. Scientific studies of historic Chinese masonry have confirmed that sticky rice lime mortar was a real and highly effective building technology. Builders mixed sticky rice soup with slaked lime, creating a composite mortar strengthened by a starch called amylopectin. Mortars of this type are associated with major Ming-era walls and fortifications, and many of those sections have outlasted earthquakes and centuries of weather. Researchers consider it one of the earliest known composite building materials, combining an organic binder with an inorganic one centuries before modern engineering formalized the idea. No credible archaeological evidence has confirmed powdered human bone as a construction ingredient in the Great Wall. The bone story appears to be exactly that, a story, likely built from the very real horror of workers dying near construction zones, then exaggerated and passed down through generations of retelling until it hardened into accepted fact. Which means the actual secret hidden inside the world's most famous wall isn't a hidden horror at all. It's that one of the most confidently repeated hidden truths about a famous place turns out to be the one thing that was invented. One final place remains, the most studied monument on the planet. And even after more than a century of study, it is still concealing something nobody has ever laid eyes on. Chapter 9. The Great Pyramid. The void inside the world's most studied monument. The Great Pyramid of Giza has been measured, mapped, tunneled into, and theorized about for well over a century. In 2017, the Scan Pyramids mission announced that 3 independent muon detection technologies had revealed a major cavity above the Grand Gallery. Launched in 2015, the project used cosmic ray muons, subatomic particles constantly passing down through the stone from space, tracked by detector plates placed throughout the structure, including sensors inside the Queen's chamber and instruments positioned entirely outside the pyramid. It was a technique capable of revealing empty spaces that no camera, drill, or ground radar could safely locate. The cavity they found measures at least 30 meters long, with a cross-section comparable in size to the Grand Gallery itself. It was the first major new internal structure identified inside the Great Pyramid since the 19th century. Researchers named it the Scan Pyramid's Big Void. No modern exploration has directly entered it. Nobody has confirmed its exact shape, its floor, or its actual function. It is not a confirmed chamber, and it is not a treasure room. Those are headlines, not findings. It is honestly and simply a substantial empty volume whose purpose remains genuinely unknown, sitting inside the most examined ancient structure on Earth. A separate, much smaller corridor-shaped void was later characterized near the pyramid's north face in 2023, a distinct discovery entirely, and one that has sometimes been carelessly confused with the Big Void in casual reporting since. Nearly 4,500 years after it was built, using nothing but subatomic particles falling constantly from deep space, scientists confirmed that the most measured object on the planet still isn't fully known or understood. The most famous monument in the world has a secret inside it that even modern physics can only prove exists without yet being able to say what it is. A carved body beneath volcanic soil, a machine under an arena floor, an Iron Age chariot burial under a field, a monument folded inside a hill, a war buried under sand, a king under painted parking lines, an illegal cinema hidden inside Paris's abandoned quarry network, a myth that dissolved the moment anyone tested it, a void inside the most studied structure humanity has ever built. None of these places are unknown. They are among the most visited, most photographed, most written about locations on Earth.
And still, each one kept something back. Some of what's hidden is physical: stone, machinery, bone, brick. Some of it is only a story, waiting for someone to actually check whether it was ever true. Either way, the pattern repeats everywhere you look closely enough. The surface is not the whole monument. It is only the version time has left visible.
Yeah.